Hello again, Howard Baxton here. I'm going to continue this video and talk about a few more things that I couldn't get squeezed into that last video. On this video, we're going to cover menus and how they work and what creates them, how note card names work, talk about some menu ordering things, and then we're going to walk through a list of scripts and kind of give you an idea and overview of how those work. Probably won't be a complete list. There's going to be a lot of things I don't mention in them, but they're just typically going to be minor issues that they're taking care of and all that neat stuff. So we'll go ahead and continue on that. We're looking at menus and how those work. So let me pull up the web page on menus. Let's go down here and look at menu names, note card names. Here we go. How all this works is in nPose, we actually build the menu off of the menu of the note card names, and what's in the contents of the note card are going to be instructions to nPose to do specific things or whatever we need to do to make our pose look good, and do some extra things as well. So with that said, let's kind of get in and tear this note card name down a little bit so that we can understand what's going on. We've got this prefix, which is set, all capitals, and followed by a colon, and then followed by the text that we want on our buttons. So if we had a set colon female, that would put a button up in the root menu, and the button would have female written on it. Okay, in this case, where we have the set and then a colon and then the root menu button and then another colon and this sitting name, the female becomes a submenu button and will open up another submenu, and you will see a button with the name sitting on it. And then we have the button permissions following that, or that'll be the last thing in the name of the note card would be these button permissions, which are in the curly brackets. Okay, and when you click on female, you get the submenu with the button of sitting. So if you click on the sitting button, then whatever's in the note card will run. Actually, if you click on the female, whatever's in that note card could run as well. You could have another note card named set colon female, like which I just talked about. And it will still be the submenu button, but we can put instructions in it and it will run that too. So each button we have the chance or the opportunity to put some commands in or instructions for nPose to do things. So not only here, but here in our submenu button as well. Okay, and if we scroll down a little bit, all these things that I talked about are right here, exactly, pretty much the same way that I've talked about them up there. So you can review that and everything's there. Next, let's talk about menu button order. If we look here, we've got CPLS first couples, then listen forward, then listen left, then listen right, then storyteller, then utilities. This is all put together based on the position of these note cards in the contents. When we add things to the contents here, SL automatically, or the viewer automatically, I would guess, puts these things in alphanumerical order. Okay, so that's how all of these things fall in order. And when nPose goes to look through these note cards and build its menu system, it runs from top down or alphanumeric order. So if we, for instance, wanted to change this storyteller position in the menu, which is right now currently here, what if we wanted to make that first? We could do that by putting comments in. And a comment is a string enclosed by the /* and ending with /*. So whatever comment you want would be in between. Comments may be used in the button names and are part of it. They will not be shown in the menu. And the nice part about these comments is they will change the order in the menu, or change the order, or actually by adding a comment we can move a button up or down in the menu. So in this case, typically set button A would be first because it's alphanumeric, but since we put the comments in there, we can actually put button B before button A by adding comments, where 1 would be first and 2 would be second. These comments can be pretty much any text you want. And I guess that's all I got to say about that. So if in practice we took and actually renamed this note card storyteller and put a comment in there with the /*, let's put an A in there, and that ought to be pretty easily going to put that up above, because our first note card starts with a C. So that A is going to put the storyteller way up in contents in the list. And as you see, it did. It put storyteller at the top. So when we bring up the menu, now we see storyteller is here, and it does not have that comment in it. It is spared of being put onto the button text. And that's one way you can reorder your menu buttons. What if it's in a utility or in a submenu, for instance? What if we wanted to put used memory first? So let's go down here and look at this. And we've got this utility used memory. If we were to rename this one and we put our comment out here after the submenu button and into all of these other buttons that are in that submenu, put our /* and put, for instance, C there. I'm trying something here a little bit different. Close it, re-enter it. How does that fall? It goes clear to the top. I was kind of hoping that admin would come first and we'd be down here just above the C. But that's all right. It's going to accomplish the same thing. When I go to utilities, we see the used memory is first in the list, and you can work out all the details and tinker with that and toy with it all you want. The fallback of using this is your note card names can become longer. it can be hard to find depending on your comments, and if you've got comments over here and comments over here, it can be hard to find the note card that you're looking for. Same in this one here. If you do it in couples, you've got to put that in order in the root menu, and then put it over here on the sit one to put the submenu in order. And if you have two submenus, it gets even longer. So it can be hard to find a note card you're looking for, but you can get around that. There is an option, an alternative that you can actually use. You can create a note card in, let me create this and call it dot change menu order, and you can lay this in. Now what's going to happen with that in there, oh, it's an empty note card, my bad. We already ran into that once. We know what that's about. So here it is. What's going to happen here is this. Whatever we put in this note card will be the order which things actually happen. For example, if I went to set utilities and swap, for instance, and save that, okay, we get rid of our error. But when we touch for menu, you see it doesn't read all of these note cards any longer. It goes out and reads this one note card contents and builds the menu from there. So we actually only have one button in there, which is the swap button. And literally, we don't even have swap in there because this one's set utilities swap 1-2. So if we click this, nothing would actually happen because nPose can't find that swap card because it doesn't exist. This one has a different name, therefore it isn't going to find that card. Which brings up one more note, and let me make a quick note on that. Make sure that all of your last menu buttons are unique. If you have, for instance, set couples sit 4, and you also had set utilities sit 4, nPose is going to probably get confused. It won't know which one of those two cards you're talking about, and it'll probably run the first one in the list and not even find the next one in the list. So be very careful about that. Make sure all of your button names are unique, which would be the last in the list. Make sure it doesn't match anything else as far as a button name goes. Make them unique. Okay, I think I've beat that one to death. Let's move on down this note card a little ways. There is a way that we can put fancy icons in our menu. Can't put them in there in color, but we can put them in there in black and white form, basically. But we can take base 64 encoded strings, which are enclosed in the /$ and $/ and this becomes our base 64 embedded code, encoded string, sorry. And what's going to happen with that one is it's going to put this nice little U in there with the dots on the top, because it's between the M and the N. So there it is. And this one down here, we have this base 64 encoded string, which creates the heart. I space heart space nPose. Okay, and you can look up base 64 encoded. In fact, I have a note card I'll probably add in to the instructions card as well, which points you to a place where you can get lots of these base 64 encoded symbols, and another web page which will create your base 64 encoded string. We can also embed macros in our strings so that we can actually create a macro in nPose and use it in our note card names based on whatever the current macro is. And they're enclosed in / asterisk or ampersand and closed by ampersand / So, and we'll get into macros here a little bit later, so we'll understand how to use those, and we can probably put those as well in our note card names. And that's about all I've got for note card names. And I will paste this link inside the note card as well, so you can get at that later anytime you want to. At this point, I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time and try and do this quickly and go through each one of these scripts and give you a little description of what their purpose is and what jobs they do. I don't want to really get too technical into it, but at least let you know kind of what's there and what they do. So let's start at the top. Alphanumerical order, we'll go from top to bottom. The nPose core. It does some fairly heavy lifting stuff. It sorts out all of our keywords inside the instruction cards. So for instance, this one, here's a keyword, here's a keyword, here's a keyword. It's going to sort out all of those and send them. Send whatever command is with those, like all of this other stuff, or all of this stuff, what this thing does, and all of this stuff, what this thing does to the right script, and everybody gets to do their job and everybody's happy. It also controls which sitter gets which seat when they sit down. There's some things we can do to control that as well. We'll talk about later, but it sorts out all of the sitters as far as where they're going to sit when they sit. It also generates user-defined permission for gender, so it sorts out what gender each sitter is when they sit. Okay, that's pretty quick and dirty, and I'm going to kind of leave it at that, and I'm not going to get too much more deeper into that one. The dialogue. The dialogue actually controls putting up this menu that we have, and actually tells nPose which button we click. So basically that's all it is. Okay, so it just controls this, and it puts up this up arrow and that ignore button, which we don't have any control over. The viewer does that, but it'll also put up an up arrow if we need to. If we're in a submenu, it'll put up an up arrow. So it does all the basic bookkeeping and homework that needs to be done to put that up. The menu script works hand in hand with the dialogue. The menu script sends a list of buttons. It sends our menu prompt to the dialogue such that the dialogue can put up the menu in a meaningful way for us. The menu script also receives button clicks back from the dialogue talking to the menu at that point, to tell what, and then the menu makes decisions based on which button was clicked, and directs the traffic or sends commands to whoever needs the commands and all of that. The menu script actually stores all of the paths. If you see right here, we have a path. The main path is the root directory, and if we go to the utility subdirectory, the path actually changed and says we're in the second subdirectory named utilities. So it tracks all of that path. So it has every path that's possible based on all the note cards that we have. And right now, since I've got this in here that's messing things up, we don't have much. But if we go in here, we see we've got more stuff. So get rid of that dot change menu order real quick, and we're back to the normal menu, and it says we're main utilities, and we put that in order. So if we go to admin, you see our path has changed. Main utilities, admin. We're in the admin path now. And if we go to this submenu, main utilities, admin, admin HUD path. Okay, so it keeps track of all that. And since it knows, the dialog knows we can go back, so it puts the up arrow there. It still knows we can go back, so it puts another up arrow there. Still knows we can go back. And then, on and on and on. Notecard Reader. Notecard Reader is our friend. It's an awesome unit. Notecard Reader actually, when we click a button such as Storyteller, it will go out and read this note card and get the contents out of it. And in this particular instance, it's creating seats and animations, names, and positions. So the note card reader goes out and reads that. It immediately stores all of those lines in its cache. It's a storage facility. So the first time we hit it after we reset, let's go ahead and reset scripts here. Now there's only 4 lines, so this storyteller is going to run pretty fast, but the first time it's going to read the note card and then store it in its memory. So we look and we see there's quite a few seconds that go by, and then it doesn't come back, and it doesn't come back, and I'm not sure what's going on here. Oh, I do too. I just reset, so that one didn't do anything. So if we click it now, it's going to go out and read the note card. Blah, 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 boom. And there you see it was 3 or 4 seconds or 2 seconds, whatever it was. 4 lines don't create a lot of delay, but the next time we click on it, you see it comes right back. It's just within a second. The reason for that is the note card reader sends back the contents of that storyteller card directly out of its memory to the core and starts that whole process up. So it's a good friend of ours. Just realize that after a reset, the first time you click a button, it's going to be a little bit slower because it has to read that note card. Sometimes we have as many as 15 to 20 lines inside of a note card, and it takes a little longer to read, so that thing's going to be a little bit slower. Let's go down here and talk about this slave next. The slave is another one of our base scripts. The slave is responsible mainly for animating and positioning all of the avatars as they sit down. It has another function which I want to talk about, which is it is the one that reses the adjusters when we go to utilities and admin. Oops, that was the wrong thing. Admin and adjust. It will go ahead and res the adjusters, and the adjusters will talk back and forth. So if we move an adjuster, whatever we do, it sends this data out. Okay, it sends it back to the slave, and the slave actually repeats it for us. Okay, another job this guy does, which is very important, is, let me set here real quick. is offsets. We've talked about offsets, so we know what they're doing. The slave takes care of the offsets and allows you to go ahead and set them if the menu ever comes back. There it is. So we can go ahead and change our offsets, and we already went through that, so we know what that's about. But it also becomes a cache and saves my offsets. And if somebody else comes along and changes their offsets, it will store theirs as well. So this becomes a cache script as well. So it's doesn't have a lot of memory in there, but it has some. If I come back next time and sit down and after I've set my offsets, they'll be remembered. It takes them a lot to get this into an overflow situation where it will dump the least used offsets and put in a new set for you. So I haven't seen anybody. I'm guessing it can hold at least 100 offsets. So we should be in fairly good shape with that. And what else do we have? We have the prop plugin. Prop plugin is needed if you want to res props. Anytime a command comes through the core to res props, it sends them out to the prop plugin here. If that prop plugin doesn't exist, they're not going to res. The prop plugin also takes care of any communications between the resing object, which is the couch here, and the prop. There will be an equal and opposite prop plugin put into your props. That needs to be there so they can communicate back and forth. And so that's how that works. Sat not set has a lot of major features. Some of them we've already talked about. We talked about the timer. We talked about the on unsit, where the timer is just holding off or waiting for a period of seconds, and then it runs a command. On unsit actually holds off unless we have a sitter in the corresponding seat. And if we do, then it runs. There's another one. The mate to this is on sit. And it does the same thing if we put a number in there. And blah, blah, blah. Some other stuff out, some other command out there. Oops, I forgot to put the. There we go. On sit is going to wait for a sitter to sit in seat 3, and then it will run whatever these ... dots are. So unsit waits until someone stands. Onsit waits until someone is there. So if they transferred in by a pose change, onsit will run automatically right then and there. If there's no sitter when they transfer in by someone clicking the menu button, onsit will stay there and stay triggered and ready to fire until we do have a sitter. Okay, and that's all I got to say about that. There's some other options we can talk about real quick. Let's go to global quick reference. On sit, on new, on lost. We've got all of these. We've got on enter, on exit, on new, on lost, and on all empty. Blah, blah, blah. These first 4 up here actually require seat numbers. You can have 1 seat, you can have 1, 2, 3, so that would be all 3 seats. And we can run a command, whatever's there. So on enter fires if someone enters a specific seat. It doesn't care how they entered it. if they sat down or whether a pose change put them in a specific seat, it's going to fire every time. On exit, same. If someone leaves a seat, then that's exactly the same thing. We've got an on new, which applies to new sitters. If we have a new sitter in seat 1, this thing will fire. If we have a new sitter in, whatever seat number you name, seat 2, this thing will fire. It will not fire when you change seats and get into that sitter. Okay? And we've got some others down here, which I'll let you explore and trigger. These are all new in V4, and I figured out how to use a few to my advantage, but I haven't figured out a good reason to use all of them. I guess time will tell how that goes. We'll find something sooner or later. And I think that's all I have for now, so see you next time.